Try to find purpose, try to find flow, try to find meaningful work that you enjoy doing, and be here for something bigger than yourself.
Welcome to the Legacy Branding Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Beauprelant, here to guide you through the journey of selling your business and building a personal brand that leaves a lasting impact. On the show, we'll explore real-life founder stories, expert insights, and actionable strategies to help you navigate the transition, avoid post-sale crisis, and create your impact-driven legacy brand. Whether you're thinking of selling, building to sell, or already on the other side, this podcast is your go-to resource for making your next evolution your best one yet. Let's dive in. Today on the Legacy Branding Podcast, I'm joined by Derek Coburn. He's an entrepreneur, best-selling author, and financial advisor who spent nearly 3 decades helping high achievers rethink how they work, live, and plan for the future. Derek is the author of the brand new book, Let's Retire Retirement: How to Live Your Life to the Fullest Now and Later, where he challenges the outdated idea that fulfillment comes only after we stop working. Instead, he offers a powerful framework for building a life so aligned and energized that you never want to retire from it. He's also the founder of Cadre, the unnetworking community he built with his wife, Melanie, which brings together CEOs and entrepreneurs looking to create meaningful, lasting professional relationships that go beyond business cards. Derek, welcome to the show.
Hey, Laura, happy to be here.
I'm so excited. We connected actually through another group that we're a part of, MMT. Then I came to a Cadre event, and I've just always loved our conversations and the energy that you bring.
Yeah, me too. So excited for our chat today.
Yeah, and I love your book. And this topic is really deeply personal for me. I went searching for it. I wrote a blog post called Reimagining Retirement in May of 2023.
Oh, cool.
So we were aligned before we even met.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. And so for me, I've worked with a lot of people who are stepping out of selling a business or 30-year corporate career, and they're not done. They're stepping into a second or third act. They are not done. They've got so much more they want to give, information and wisdom they want to impart, and they're not ready to just kind of ride off into the sunset and hit the golf course and the beach.
Yep.
And so that really resonated with me when you first told me about the book. And also my husband and I, we never have really aspired to this traditional idea of retirement. We always talk about, why would we want to retire from something we love? We want to maybe work differently.
Yep.
And have a bit more freedom in schedule and resources. But, ultimately, we're very aligned with the way you and Melanie live with your boys. And so I'm really excited to chat even more about this.
Amazing.
So you open the book talking about how people are sacrificing the present for a future that may never come. And I wanted to talk to you about, why do you think that so many of us are stuck in this outdated model of retirement?
Well, I will say that for starters, whenever someone starts to look into their financial planning, they meet with an advisor, they go to a website. At no point in that conversation does the advisor say, do you want to retire? They say, what age do you want to retire? And most people haven't thought about it that much. And so then the advisor will say, well, how about we pick this age instead? And they're sort of opted into it at a subconscious level in a way that they never really think about it. And then they start talking with their coworkers about their number. Are you on pace to hit your number? Are you on pace to be able to stop working by a certain age? So it's just something that a lot of people just are not giving a lot of thought to. They're accepting it as this thing that they're supposed to do. And I think the best thing that I did collectively for the majority of my clients was ask that question. Are you sure you want to stop working? I helped them realize that they probably were not going to be happy sitting around doing nothing for 30 years. And to your point, they might not be doing what they're doing now, the way that they're doing it, but doing something in some way, shape, or form. And then having that income coming in, knowing that some income is going to come in, it means you don't have to save as much now, which means you all of a sudden have more money and more time than you thought you had that you get to spend right now on the people and things that are most important to you.
Absolutely. I don't believe in sacrificing everything for today for that future. Because again, like you said, you don't know. There's no guarantee. And there's also that line, and you probably have heard it, you can't live every day like it's your last. And I think in some ways that's a story that we've been told in a way to keep us saving and always thinking in the future mode. But what about today? And what if, like, how would we live differently if we knew that tomorrow or a year from now was the end? I think we would live differently. I don't think we'd suddenly become wildly irresponsible. I mean, maybe some people would, but I think we would actually live our lives much differently.
Yeah, I mentioned in the book that one of my sort of guiding lights, one of my personal mantras is I like to live every day like I'm going to live forever and that I'm going to die tomorrow at the same time, and really try to hold that balance between the present joy and being a little bit responsible in case this thing keeps working out for me.
So, yeah, and hopefully it will.
Yeah.
How do you find that balance between those two things? Do you have any tips or guidance for people listening?
Yeah, well, I think that I'll share like sort of the way that I lean into my relationship with my kids now as a way to sort of highlight the benefits, I think, of just thinking ahead and realizing that you'll probably have income coming in later in life, that you might not sit around just sipping lemonade on your front porch for 30 years. So my boys are 15 and 12, which means they're going to be gone probably off to college in 3.5 and 5.5 years, respectively. And I spend just an incredible amount of time with them relative to most other parents I know. And the time that I spend with them, the way that I look at it is it's sponsored by, it's almost like someone's writing a check, like a sponsor. It's sponsored by my knowing that in 5.5 years, I'm going to be ready to sign up for more work, more contribution, more, like I say no to a decent number of opportunities now to speak at events because I don't want to leave my house as much. I have another mantra that I adopted from my pastor, which is I want to be more famous in my own home than I am anywhere else. And in order for that to happen, you have to be home. But like these are opportunities that in 5 or 6 years from now, if they're still there, I'm going to say for sure, like I'm going to want to work 50 hours a week again once they go off to school. And so it's kind of like a short-term view of the way that I view this longer-term way of thinking where I can lean into these relationships. And I'll share a story with you. When my boys were 10 and 7, Melanie and I had this nightly routine where we would take turns tucking them into bed. And we would read them a story, we'd say a prayer, we would snuggle with them, and it was really nice. And I caught myself sort of wishing it would hurry up and end most nights so that I could go watch a show with Melanie or I could respond to the email. And I'm like, my oldest kid is not going to want to do this for very much longer, and I'm going to miss it. So why am I like thinking this way? I need to be more mindful. I need to be more present. And I started to force myself to do that. And it works sometimes, but not all the time. So then I had this crazy thought that I wonder if in the future, when I'm in my 60s, a company comes around and invents a time machine. And they tell me that I can pay money to go back in time for one night, for one experience with my kids. So I could go back in time to have one more nighttime snuggle with the 10-year-old version of my oldest son. What would I be willing to pay for that? And the answer is, I think a lot of money, but we settled on $50,000. It's like, I will write a $50,000 check. I think a lot of people probably listening to this conversation would probably write a $50,000 check to go back and have one of these experiences, but we're not treating them like they're $50,000 experiences while they're happening. And so even though that phase has come and gone, there are a lot of other opportunities that are happening, a lot of these moments that are happening every day where I know they're $50,000 experiences. And I know that there's not going to probably be a company in the future that lets me go back in time to experiencing them. So I want to just really be as present as possible to enjoy them as much as possible while they're still here.
Absolutely. And I think that you can't get that time back. I've looked back, there's not too many moments that I've like regretted or that, but it's like, oh, I could have done that thing, but I was like, oh, I should save my money instead, or I don't. And I'm like, there's always more of that. Like,
Yep.
But that experience is now gone. And that's a beautiful gift with hindsight. I went to visit a cousin of mine who I knew was dying years ago. She lived in Denmark. I'm in Canada. And when I knew that the end was coming, that she was in fact going to die and it was fairly imminent, I got on a plane without a moment of hesitation, and I spent 3 days with her in the hospital. We laughed, we cried, we did all the things. And, you know, we have the philosophy in our house. My husband was the one who said it. He's like, you go for the living. You don't go to her funeral. You go while she's still alive, where you can have those conversations. The biggest regret would have been not going and not having had that time with her. Did I feel like I could leave my business, or I was uprooting myself from my family? All of those things. There's so many things that stop us from doing the things that are really important and matter in that moment. And that was the most important decision. And I will always carry those memories and the gift of that time with her, rather than the regret of having not gone.
Yes. Good for you.
Yeah. And I think you have a quote in the book too from the Dalai Lama that says, it's about how we sacrifice our health for money and then our money for our health. And that is like, whew, you see that, you hear that happen so often, that we forego going to the gym and eating well and doing all these things. And then we end up in these medical crises, whether it's at midlife or later in life. And then you end up, all that money you've earned and saved, you end up spending on your health. And imagine if we found a little bit more balance, it would probably equal out in the end.
Oh, it would more than equal out. It would be much more to someone's advantage to prioritize them in the short term, because I think that our society puts way too much of an emphasis on the long-term benefits of things like sleep and exercise and eating well. I know that if I sleep well tonight, that it's probably going to be good for me 20 years from now. But the main reason I want to sleep well tonight is because it's going to be great for me 20 hours from now. That if I sleep really well tonight, I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and I'm going to make better choices at 9 o'clock in the morning. And then those better choices at 9 o'clock in the morning are going to lead to better choices at 11 o'clock in the morning, and so on and so forth. It's going to be easier for me to put foods that are good for me into my mouth, and to remember to go to the gym if I'm well rested, if I got all my work done. And so I think the problem is a lot of people feel like they're stuck. A lot of people feel like, I don't have time for this because I've got this ticking clock. I need to save my money. And I want to remind people that they have a choice here. And I want to remind people that once they acknowledge that they'll probably work a little bit longer, again, it doesn't have to be what they're doing right now. And I'm sure if people listening right now hate what they do for a living, the idea of doing it any longer probably sounds terrible. And that sipping on a beach, drinking fruity alcoholic beverage probably sounds amazing. And it will probably feel amazing for a week or two, but I don't think it's going to provide lasting happiness. And so I want people to recognize and realize that by deciding that they're going to work longer, that they're creating just an enormous amount of time and money right now that they previously didn't think that they had. And so I'd love to just share an example with you. You probably read in the book about a tale of two Tonys. So Tony is a 45-year-old who I made up, and he makes $150,000 a year and has $150,000 saved in his retirement accounts. And feel free to add a zero. Feel free to make it the number that you want to make it. I have a calculator on my website so people can go there and they can personalize it with their numbers. And it's an exercise in letting you see the benefits of extending your working years a little bit. So if Tony wants to retire at 65, he's going to have to save $2,400 a month every single month between the age of 45 and 65, which is 20% of what he's making. And it's going to be adjusted for inflation. So it's always going to be about 20% of what he's making. And that's a non-starter for most people. That would mean that you are spending almost as much as you're saving. But he immediately feels the pressure. He immediately feels the stress. He immediately feels like he can't go home for family dinner or go to the gym or sleep as much as he wants to or take this elaborate family vacation because he's behind and he needs to catch up. So then Tony's wife says, Tony, you actually don't really hate what you do. You like it. You like your coworkers. You like the people that you work with. And even if you aren't there anymore, I can't imagine you not doing anything. So Tony asks his financial advisor, can you update the plan to show what I would need to do if I work until I'm 75? And when he does that, the amount that Tony has to save goes from about $2,400 a month down to $110 per month. So it goes down by 96%. And even if Tony were to say, I'll go an extra 5 years, the number goes down to $600. It goes down by 75%. So all of a sudden, Tony just feels the weight of the world is lifted off of his shoulders. He can do all of those things. He doesn't have to miss family dinners anymore. He can take his wife out on more dates. He can go to the gym more often, knowing that he's going to be working longer because he doesn't have to save as much money. He's got this extra money and this extra time that he can make different choices with.
Exactly. And I think you talk about it in your book as well. And I know I had read about this, that retirement was this thing that was manufactured like less than 100 years ago to get more of the aging population out to bring job opportunities for young people when the life expectancy was 70.
Yeah.
Now where people are living to 80, 90, 100, not always great years, but they're living longer. And to be retired for that many years was never the intention of why it was created in the first place.
Correct. Yeah. The first signs of retirement, it was 1889 in Germany by a chancellor named Otto von Bismarck. And he set up the first government social program for retirees. And he made the age of eligibility 70 because that was the age that people were expected to live until. Then they lowered it to 65. And then to your point, when FDR was setting up Social Security in the United States in 1935, thought 65 sounded like a perfectly good number. And with a life expectancy of 71, 72, Social Security was going to cover a third of someone's income. Then they were getting another third of their income from pension plans, which really don't exist anymore. So people only really needed to come up with about a third of their income, and they only had to do it for 6 or 7 years. And now, like, we're buying into this idea that we were put on this earth to do something that we don't really enjoy doing for 30 years, to earn the right to sit around and do nothing after that for 30 more years. And it just seems like a terrible thing for us to be buying into.
And that's not a goal. And I know you talk about that, like retirement isn't a goal, because then what? Hey founders, quick shameless plug for the sponsor of this podcast and my company, Lab Creative, where we help ambitious founders untangle their personal brand from their business so they can position the company to sell and build a personal brand for their next evolution. If that sounds like you, head to labcreative.ca to check out our work and to book a call with me. Or if you want to just dip your toe in first, grab a copy of the Founders Brand Playbook. It's our free step-by-step guide to building a brand that attracts premium buyers and creates opportunities for you post-sale. You can download it at labcreative.ca/playbook.
I talk a little bit about happiness versus meaning in the book. And the goal of retirement is typically associated with this term, an arrival fallacy, which is like the goal, the end result of something is not what it was cracked up to be. And I think we're seeing that now. Like, we're seeing this unretirement movement where something like 25 or 30% of people who have already retired are going back to work. And it's not because they need the money. It's because they missed the connection. They missed the contribution. They missed like being able to really share their gifts. And there was a study done a number of years ago by a woman named Barbara Fredrickson. And she had two groups of people. Half the group prioritized personal happiness. They said, we're here now to maximize the amount of joy and happiness that I can deliver for myself. The second group of people were in it for the purpose and the meaning. We're here for the greater good, for contribution beyond ourselves. And for the group of people that prioritized happiness, it was really fascinating, the response that their bodies had, because they hooked everyone up to heart monitors and brain monitors. And the response was the same response that our bodies have when we're dealing with chronic adversity. So the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job, inflammation went really high. They were much more likely to get sick. They were much more likely to die or get diseases. And the other group, the group that prioritized purpose and meaning, it was the opposite. Inflammation was incredibly low. Their immunity was great. They weren't getting sick. And at the end of the day, the conclusion was essentially that if you want to be happy, don't directly pursue happiness. Try to find purpose, try to find flow, try to find meaningful work that you enjoy doing, and be here for something bigger than yourself. And I think that's why you hear about so many people that after they retire, they stopped working and 3 years later they got a disease or they passed away. It's like their bodies just kind of said, you're not here anymore for like the greater good. So maybe we're not going to try as hard to keep you around as we would otherwise.
Yeah. I remember it was a number of years ago now, but a friend of my dad, I think he was retiring, I think in his 50s even. So probably even earlier than, definitely earlier than the 65. I think he died a couple of weeks before his retirement. And he had just been working until that, I'm going to start living after that date. And you hear that so many times, I'm going to work really hard. Like you said, I'm going to forego that vacation and forego all of these things so that I can have all this time later. But what if you don't?
Yeah.
How we live our lives, why we moved to Sicily for a year and I reduced my work schedule so we could travel, but I was still working. And maybe I missed out on some opportunities, but I had this time with my family family and the adventures and the kids. And we will always have that.
Yes. Our society, they expect us to work the most and have our prime earning years be the same years that our kids probably need us and want us the most. And there's a stat from Tim Urban that I shared in my book, which is that by the time our kids graduate high school, assuming they move off to go to college away from home, that we've already spent 93% of the time that we're going to spend with them over the course of our lives, right? And so that means we've got 7% left. And my North Star, so I got the message loud and clear about that, fortunately, when I was younger, and I'm really leaning into my time with them now, but also my North Star, my guiding light, my singular goal, and with most of the decisions that I make on a day-to-day basis right now, is it going to increase or decrease the likelihood that my kids are going to want to spend more time with me when they're adults? Because that's what I'm solving for. I'm solving for that more than I'm solving for EBITDA. I'm solving for that more than I'm solving for an exit price. I'm solving for that more than what my number was going to be at the age of 65. That's the game that I'm playing, if you will.
I love that. And I know you did sell your business
Yep.
recently in the last couple of years, correct?
Yeah.
So how did that play? I know that you said that kind of was fairly unexpected. How does that play into the way you live your life? And what was the shift there for you from running your wealth management practice to where you are now?
Yeah, so I would say we got approached by a private equity company to buy my wealth management practice, and we sold it, and I had a 3-year earnout. And the way that I describe it is I won the game that most people are playing. And maybe I didn't win it to the extent that other people won it, but I won it to the extent where I got a good amount of cash that was in my bank that was able to sponsor me taking a step back to say, do I want to play this game anymore? And the answer was no. And with that, what game do I want to play instead? And look, that involved going through a transformation, that involved a midlife crisis, that involved me shaking up the snow globe a little bit in terms of the relationship that I have with myself, with my wife, with my kids. I realized I had a number of addiction/coping mechanisms where, like, would have a glass or two of wine most nights for probably 15 years. I would rarely get drunk, but I would have like a glass of wine each night, or I need wine in order to relax. I need nicotine in order to focus. I had a 25-year daily nicotine addiction that I gave up. And I said, I want to stop feeling like I need these things or these people or these situations in order to feel a certain way. I want to feel good without needing anything. And I do not recommend giving up everything all at once cold turkey, because that was probably not the best idea. But I was able to pick up more of a meditation practice. I started praying more. I started being in silence more. One of the things that occurred to me was I was reminded about my childhood, certain parts of my childhood where in the 7th grade, I had an entire classroom of kids chanting, "Who do we hate? We hate Derek." I had teachers telling me that I wasn't going to be successful because my grades weren't good enough. And I had girls not accepting my advances to take them on a date or to be in a relationship with them. And I realized that, like, my life around that time became one big, you don't think I can do something? Like, watch me. And like that energy fueled me. That energy, don't get me wrong, like it provided a lot of really amazing things in my life that I'm really grateful for. But again, I sold my practice. I got some money. I got to take a step back and observe like this tendency. And I'm recognizing that I'm waking up most days with this energy because my body got addicted to this. Like, okay, who are we going to start something with today? Because in order to prove someone wrong, you need an adversary. So we need to go. And like, I think it served me really well. I was very successful. I have more friends than most adults I know. I'm married to like my soulmate, the most incredible human being on the planet. And so I love it. And I want to create from a different place than that. And so, yeah, I can talk more about this if you want, but that was just one of the things that I was able to do as a result of selling my practice, is kind of like start over and reassess kind of what I wanted to be doing going forward.
Would you say that you still went through that midlife crisis? Well, you did. You mentioned midlife crisis. So that was a challenging time after you sold. However, I believe you already had Cadre, and I know you have a beautiful group of friendships and a beautiful marriage. So I'm assuming that all of these things, they help ease that transition time?
They did a little bit. Like, I would also say that part of me figuring out that I got really good at playing the game that everybody wanted me to play was I got really good at figuring out what to do and what to say to get people to like me. And so I had a lot of people around me that I had been showing up in a certain way that pleased them. Right. And so now
Mhm.
it's like, I'm in a position where I don't necessarily need to do that or want to do that anymore. And I think it caused some relationships to change a little bit. And I think that some of those relationships changing, like we all hear the more bravado terminology around like as you grow, like people aren't going to keep up and you can't please everyone. And as you change, and it's more like from the perspective of, too bad for them, too bad for these other people, right? That you've evolved and they haven't, because now giving them energy is not a good way for you to spend your energy. But what doesn't get a lot of airtime is the fact that, oh, wow, like these are some people that I really liked being around. And I guess they only liked being around me when I was being performative, and it's not really their fault, right? It's not their fault that I was showing up in a less than authentic way, but it was still a little sad at times where like, oh, I really miss having this person around. I really liked interacting with them. And Gabor Mate, in his book Myth of Normal, which is an amazing book that I liked quite a bit, he had an entire chapter where he talked about the difference between, or the constant tug of war that most of us experience between attachment and authenticity. That we want to show up and have people like us and have people have friends, have connections. And we typically need to bend ourselves a little bit in order to get them to want to be with us. But then the authenticity piece is, if we're truly authentic and we're going to just be ourselves all the time and not think about the connection piece at all, we're probably not going to have very many people that want to hang out with us, right? So his advice was like, you don't want to go to the polar extreme in either way, but you want to find the right balance and the right way to turn the knobs and the levers so that you're not compromising yourself too much, but people still want to hang out with you a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that shift. And you're right. It's not, the onus shouldn't only be on the people who you're, as you said, leaving behind because they liked a version of you that maybe wasn't really you.
Yes. Yeah. And again, and it can be sad. It can be like, again, I hear what I see on social media, what I see from a lot of influencers is that as I evolve, as I grow, as I change, your friends are going to change and you'll be relating to different people. And it's this more of a motivational tone that good for you that you've outgrown these individuals. And I don't see really anyone talking about how, well, that stinks because I had a good time hanging out with a few of these people. And now, because I'm showing up more like how I want to show up, they don't want to hang out with me as much anymore. And there's a little bit of sadness. There's a little bit of pain. There's a little bit of like temptation to want to revert back and change. So there are some incredible benefits that come with leaning into being truly you even more, especially if you haven't been. But there's a little bit of loss that comes with that in my experience too.
Yeah. And I believe you talk about this too. I think it's a common thing that I'm hearing more about, that it's harder as adults to make friends.
Yes.
I think especially men, you get to that point in your life. And if you're now growing and you're realizing that these friends you've had maybe for years, or there's not that alignment, you more in the loss of a friendship, but then how do you find these new people? And I know you have a graph in your book about who we spend time with as we age. And it is sobering to see that shift of how much time we spend alone and how little time we really spend with people that mean a lot to us, including friends.
Yeah. Up until the time we're 20 years old, humans spend about 100 minutes a day hanging out with friends. And by the time we're in our 40s and 50s, it's down to about 30 minutes a day spread over the course of a week or a month. And by the time we're older than that, it's about 15 minutes a day, which is like a lunch once a week with someone, right? And so I really do feel like, even though the main takeaway from this study was, oh, we're going to spend a lot of time by ourselves when we're older, we better get really comfortable with being by ourselves. I'm like, why are we not prioritizing friendship more? When did we decide that that wasn't important? And yeah, I think especially for guys, I mean, for men, in my experience, so many of them, it's like they're hanging out with like the dads who of their kids' friends or the husbands of their wives' friends, and they're talking about sports, and they're like, it's like, and if you lose one, like you can easily just plug right into the new dad or new husband a month or two later, and it's not that big of a deal. But there's, for as much time as we spend thinking about how much we need to retire and where we're going to retire and what we're going to do in retirement, I think we should spend a little bit of time thinking about who do we want to retire with? Who do we want to spend time with once we get there?
Yeah. And who do we want to spend time with this week
Yeah,
or
of
today?
course. Yes.
And I think we have the privilege, maybe. I mean, it's very intentional, though. Like, you created Cadre. We're in a group called MMT together. And like, when I look at who my friend groups are, the people that I really have deep connections with, they're not necessarily the people I've known my whole life. There are more people that go on the Wayfinder adventure travel trips. I know you know Mike, who runs those, or they're in MMT or Cadre. And it's because we've all come together and we're all entrepreneurs. We're all business owners. So we have that in common, but you start to really find like these soul connections with other humans. So we actually are very privileged in many ways to have the ability to connect with people. But what do you do if you don't have these kinds of communities?
I mean, you have to join them, I think. I also mentioned in the book that I think that we are in the midst of a fun recession. I think that 99% of adults are not coming close to having an appropriate amount of fun on a regular basis. Based on my informal surveying over the past 5 years, when I ask most people when the last time they had fun was, they typically pause for 10 seconds. They have to really think about it. And they usually land on something like, oh, I had dinner with this other couple for a month ago and we had a bottle of wine and we talked about our kids, and like, no, like, what are we doing? Like, we should be enjoying this more. And I think even I wouldn't be surprised if there's like parts of our, like our mind, our body, we're working hard, we're doing the work, we're work. And like, why should I fall in line for you for all this work stuff when you never show me a good time? And so I think that prioritizing fun as a nice break from the action, it re-energizes me and it allows me to show up as a husband, as a father, as a friend, as a business leader, a much better version of all of those when I'm making time to enjoy life a little bit more.
Absolutely. And that's how you create those memories too, with friends or your kids. And I know you and I both have a love of live music. And so
Yeah.
we end up going to a lot of concerts and shows and having tons of fun there. And it doesn't always have to cost that much money.
Correct.
Like, we went and played pool with our son on Sunday night and watched the Leafs lose miserably.
Ugh.
But like, it was such a fun evening of like going to play pool at a local pool hall. It's like $25. It's like nothing to go and have that time, get out of the house and do something fun together.
Yeah. And in fact, I recommend trying to start off with more bite-sized commitments in terms of money and time. So if you have not been prioritizing fun, I would not be looking to plan some elaborate European vacation. Just like if you have not been working out or going to the gym, I would not sign up to run a half marathon tomorrow. And look, I think that for me, live music and stand-up comedy are the two best ways we can access fun as human beings, okay? And the reason for that is there's a term called collective effervescence that has been used to describe the best possible feeling that we can have as human beings in the bliss and joy category. And collective effervescence combines two things. It combines being in a flow state, forgetting where you are, and feeling a certain emotion and sharing that emotion with a larger group of people, right? So when we're at a concert and we're all singing along to a part of the song that we've all sang at the top of our lungs driving down the street, and 500 other people did that same exact thing and they're singing it with us, like, that is a feeling that is very hard to replicate at a wine event with another couple, right? Like, you can't, not to say that we shouldn't be doing those either, but some people like to suggest sporting events, but like, look, you're a Leafs fan, I'm a Caps fan. They're both out of the playoffs right now. When sports are going well, it can certainly produce that type of an experience, but sports 50% of the time are going to produce like an unpleasant, uncomfortable feeling. And even if you're winning, like, especially if we're talking about hockey, I mean, we're losing years off of our lives, even when our team ends up winning the game, just because of the amount of stress that we're experiencing. Whereas like when I see a concert, I'm not watching my guitar player like on pins and needles, wondering if he's going to mess up, freaking out about it. Like, I'm just enjoying the entire experience the entire time. So look, depending on where you live, like maybe there's a great cover band, maybe there's like a hole in the wall comedy club. There's a really nice app called Bands in Town that will pair with a Spotify account. And based on the bands you listen to, based on your listening history, it will make recommendations for concerts that are coming to your town. But yeah, it can be Just invite an old friend and say, let's go check out this Fleetwood Mac cover band next week. And it's $30 and just get out of the house and enjoy yourself a bit.
Absolutely. My gosh, I feel like I had so many other things I wanted to talk with you about because I love this topic. I feel like maybe we'll have to have another episode, but
Cool.
I totally agree. And I know this is why when you and I first met, we connected because we have very parallel lives in so many ways and beliefs and our spouses and family and the way we live our lives. And
For sure.
I absolutely love that. So the podcast is called Legacy Branding. And so I always ask people what legacy means to them. So I'd love to know, Derek, based on everything, your life experience and everything you're building, what does legacy mean to you?
Okay, so I'm going to throw you a curveball here. And I overheard a conversation about a year ago between Peter Attia and Joe Rogan. And they were talking about legacy, and they were talking about how they, independent of one another, decided around the same time that they were going to stop caring about their legacy, that they were not going to be worried about what people thought about them 50 years from now or 100 years from now, and how releasing that dramatically made them happier than they were before that. So I've been playing around with that. I've been holding space for that. I saw a really nice Instagram post from Anthony Hopkins recently. And Anthony Hopkins said, a few hours after your funeral, everyone is going to stop crying. And your extended family are going to start telling stories. They're going to start talking about current events. Your kids within a week or two are going to start going back to their regular lives, and they're not going to be thinking about you as much. A month from now, your spouse is going to start watching some movies and starting to laugh again. And the idea is that, like, very quickly after we pass away, the majority of the people that knew us and loved us most are not going to be thinking about us all that much. So why are we spending so much of our time and our energy right now thinking so much about what everyone thinks about us? Like, why are we not living our lives the way that we feel like, in a way that's going to make us happy, in a way that's going to allow us to contribute to the world, in a way where we don't feel like we are being less authentic for the sake of other people? So I reserve the right to change my mind about this stuff at any time, but I've been in a space where I've been releasing the pressure that I used to feel around my legacy. And so far, it's a good feeling that I'm enjoying leaning into even more.
And I love that because I also believe that it's not just about what happens after you're gone. It's like, it is that, but it is reverse engineering. It's going to the end of your life and looking at what is the impact I want to have while I'm here? How do I want to show up? Who do I want to be? And it starts with yourself. Like, and if you can show up and live an aligned life that is you fully expressing yourself, doing what makes you, what has meaning, not just makes you happy, that has an impact on the people around you, that has legacy that isn't necessarily tied to money or even your name necessarily, but maybe it's a feeling that you left behind with how you showed up for people.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Yeah, I love that. So how can people get a copy of the book? How can they learn more about Cadre? What other resources can you share?
Yeah, they can go to, the book's out. They can go to Amazon. They can go to Barnes & Noble, wherever they buy books. It should be there. My website is derekcoburn.com. I've already been writing more beyond what was in the book on this topic. I'm really committed to the long tail here. I'm committed to this book becoming a perennial seller. I'm committed to really just completely changing the narrative around retirement and helping people realize that it's not something that they have to buy into. And I'd love for them to sign up for my newsletter, buy my book. They can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn and all those places. Cadre DC is where I'm at on Instagram and X. Yeah, this was amazing chatting with you, Laura. Really appreciate the invitation, and we should definitely do it again sometime.
Absolutely. We'll make sure all those links are in the show notes. And thank you so much, Derek. What an awesome conversation.
Ditto. Thanks, Laura.
Thanks for tuning into the Legacy Branding Podcast. I hope today's episode has inspired and empowered you on your journey to building a brand that truly matters. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other founders who you think would benefit from listening. And if you're ready to take the next step in building your legacy brand, visit our website, labcreative.ca, to learn more and book a call. Don't forget to join us next time for more conversations that will help you navigate your transition and create your legacy. Until then, I'm Laura Beauperlant.